I am hearing and reading that the game outrated the Stanley Cup Finals, the World Series, and the NBA Finals on television. Unfortunately for Ryan Day and the Buckeyes, the game outrated the NBA Finals, the World Series, and the Stanley Cup Finals. And, of course, the state of Ohio was locked in as well. Not pretty, and now a 360-day wait for any type of revenge. And we've got the guys that, wow, they get paid the big money to explain all this. Why it happened, how did that possibly happen? We got Tony Gerdeman, of course, from Buckeye Huddle. Catch him right there, and his podcast, Buckeye Weekly, and Steve Hellwagon, Bucknuts 247 Sports. Guys, how we doing today?
Good. Doing great.
Well, we're going to squeeze another hour out of you. I'm sure you've talked enough, thought enough, written enough about this, but wow, Steve. And I also dragged you onto a podcast yesterday to talk about it even more.
Yeah.
So, people want to assess blame is where people want to go with this, of course.
Yeah. You know, we've had several days to internalize this and what happened, and it was such an anomaly for anything that we've seen at Ohio State this season, last season, or any of the last 20-some seasons. I mean, the last time they lost to Michigan by double digits, I guess, was 2003. They lost to them. Well, I guess just last year they lost to them by double digits. But to get blown out kind of the way that it turned out, you know, that goes back quite a ways. And a lot of worsts and firsts connected to this game, and worst margin of defeat at home for Ohio State to Michigan since 1976. 22-0 was the score then. This was a 22-point loss. And first time back-to-back wins for Michigan in the series since 1999 and 2000. But, you know, aside from all that, you wonder about how does something like this happen? And I look at it, it wasn't a case where Michigan started the game and just blew them out from start to finish. I mean, this was still an 8-point game with 7 minutes to go after Ohio State had kicked the field goal to get it, you know, figuratively a manageable game. And it just got away from them like a snowball rolling downhill. They gave up the 2 long touchdown runs at the end that really padded the score for Michigan. And Ohio State was unable to answer. 2 interceptions late in the game by C.J. Stroud, and that was that. So, you know, I don't know. I guess into everybody's life, a bit of rain must fall at some point. And Michigan, I wouldn't even say for lack of trying, because it seems like Jim Harbaugh has been trying to leave that job for the last several years, has stumbled upon the right collection of assistant coaches and players to turn the tide against Ohio State. I read, well, I don't remember the exact year, but just something about how they beat Ohio State and Michigan State in the same year for a first time in a long time or something as well. But, you know, they are on top of the world right now. And, you know, Ohio State is left to kind of hold the bag and wonder what's next. Is it the Rose Bowl? Could it be a college football playoff? And Ohio State fans alternately are juggling their hatred for their own coaches and players with the idea that I still want to play in a playoff game. I still want to play in a playoff game, but I hate our coaches and players. So, you know, which is it, people?
It's all of it. And tenfold in the hating and the frustration. I think you can assign blame wherever you want, and plenty of people share it. I think going away from the run, Ohio State ran the ball like 20 times for 125 yards in the first half and ran the ball 9 times in the second half. And, you know, if it's working, keep doing it until it's not working. Dialing up some of the blitzes and when maybe you didn't need to, and then also players not being in their gaps and not being fundamentally sound, losing their focus there in the secondary. 5 plays covering 349 yards of total offense for Michigan. 2/3 of their offense came from 5 touchdown plays. And so just breakdowns there as well. And through it all, Michigan never blinked. They never flinched. They just kept going. They came into the game with confidence. Ohio State came into the game with hope. And I wrote about this, I think, after the game. Hope, the other side of hope is doubt. And when the tides start to turn, you start to see that doubt. And I think that's what happened there. And I left the press box after the field goal to make it 8. And I finally get down to like the track area. And then I just see Donovan Edwards going free on his first touchdown run. And that was basically it. And Ohio State, it reminded me of the Oregon game last year where there was desperation and it, there was some hope, but you never really thought that it was going to work out for Ohio State once they were down 2 scores. Then you saw the results.
Yeah, I obviously got in late, so I assume we're talking about what went wrong, and there was, again, not a
San Diego State basketball. Yeah.
Well, that game was just a mess too. But it was the first moment that I said, "Uh-oh, the guys may be in trouble," was when J.J. McCarthy carried a couple of Ohio State defenders on like a 14-yard run. And that was in the second half after Ohio State had held Michigan to, 1 yard in the first half on the ground or something like that. Ohio State, took 3s and 0s in the first half when it should have taken 7s and really should have had Michigan in a hole. And, we can sit there and debate, until the cows come home, what the game would have looked like under those circumstances if Ohio State would have been more successful early on in the game. But, it was just really a couple of big plays, 5, I guess, that told the story there. Now there's, now it's going to be a cold, dark winter and summer and everything else over the next 360 some odd days to, for Ohio State fans, and a lot of questions if, this team that has been built to win national championships is built to beat Michigan. And, you need to finish step A before you can really worry about step B. And to Steve's point, as I had just gotten into the chat about what happens if Ohio State backdoors its way into the playoff. I mean, there's going to be so much self-loathing at that point, and I can already rip the headlines out. Oh, we don't want to play Georgia. They're going to stomp on us. But so I guess we're just going to have to see. But it makes for a lot of great podcasts and talk radio, and I guess I'm here for that. But I would be much happier talking on a happier note.
Can I address the Justin Courtney comment here? If Day lost to Michigan again in the college football playoff, I think he would get fired. No, he's not getting fired. Any mention of firing Ryan Day this season is it's wishery for some people maybe. You don't fire somebody for making it to the college football playoff championship game.
Yeah, that's Ohio State fans being spoiled, and Ohio State fans just obviously reacting to disdain and just no one that bleeds scarlet and gray was happy with what they were witnessing on Saturday. There's no question about that. And they get paid a lot of money to be analyzed and criticized and critiqued. But as I stated last week, and I'm not saying that there's nothing broken with Ohio State, because there obviously are issues to be addressed, but somebody's going to lose this game. Both teams could be super prepared, laser focused, working hard. The coaches could be on point. Somebody's going to lose the game. Now, in the fashion that they did, especially as Kevin just said, depending on the cup half full or the cup half empty fans or any of us at halftime, I was more in the cup half full that they're ready to break this thing open. They are winning 90% of these plays. They had 2 letdowns. They had some red zone issues, which obviously have existed from other games, but I thought that the team might take over in the second half, but the other team did. The other point of emphasis in all this, well, there's a zillion, but in regards to decisions, were obviously the 4th down decisions. And just to clarify, there was a fake punt called for 1. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's what it
Yeah.
seems like, and the long snapper snapped it on through to the punter. I don't even think the punter was expecting to get the snap. It didn't seem like. It was weird. And Rossi appeared confused why the ball wasn't snapped to him. Yeah, I don't know. It was a weird play, that's for sure.
Backup long snapper for Ohio State because they lost their starting long snapper to a knee injury earlier in the season, a few weeks earlier. And so that was just another one of those little things. And he also had a false, an illegal snap earlier as well, and tried to snap it and didn't snap it. There's, such is life. And kudos to Jesse Merkel for actually getting that punt off, because he had no business getting rid of that thing, because Michigan was overloaded on that side because Ohio State was going to go to the left. And I don't understand. So many times this season we have seen just foolish plays by the special teams, whether it starts in the opener with Taraji Mitchell jumping over the line, jumping over the snapper, where you can't do that on a punt, and yet he's doing it throughout the season. There are these boneheaded plays that the players starting on special teams should know that you can't do that. This is wrong. You can't do these things. And Ohio State has a standalone special teams coordinator in Parker Fleming. His job is to make sure that everybody knows these things. And for the long snapper to not get the message that this is a fake, I don't even understand how that is possible.
Well, and Jim Harbaugh, during his Monday teleconference for the Big Ten championship game, kind of commented about that they were toast. They would have been a 20-yard plus play there. I mean, there was nothing that they could do about it at that point. And for whatever, he didn't go further on that point. This is me saying it was not executed properly. There was a breakdown somewhere in there, and it was a play that was going to work. I mean, it was absolutely going to work. And, I know it's very difficult in talking about the game and saying, well, blank happens. Well, blank happened, and now we're sitting here.
Well, and when the talent is equated and blank happens, it's hard to overcome. Blank can happen against Maryland and you win by 6. Blank can happen against Rutgers and you win by 60. Blank happens against Michigan and you lose by 3 touchdowns.
Absolutely. Well, the TV shot from that play was from behind the punter. They didn't shoot it from up top. They shot it from the back of the punter, and yeah, it looked wonky, and it went through my mind. Okay, 4th, and I wanted them to go for it. I thought they were going for it. Was this a fake punt? It didn't. He just looked like he didn't know what to do with it. Oh, suddenly there's a football in my hands, and he did a remarkable job just to get the thing off. Ferris, appreciate you being here. Thank you for that. Cheer up, Ohio State fans. We know losses hurt.
I don't think Michael Campbell knows it.
No, Michael is screaming to us in all caps most of the time. So he's either excited or enraged or something, or not listened to, maybe.
The Notre Dame loss to Ohio State doesn't seem to have hurt him at all.
All right. Let's turn to Jim Knowles and his defense. It was working so well in the first half, excluding 2 plays, of course. And all it takes is 1 play on a drive to bust, and there it goes. And Tony, what keeps coming back to me is how many times you let us all know that, not that Kevin and Steve did not, that this defense was designed a certain way, and Jim Knowles would explain it as we're going to give up a few plays. But when they come from 75 and 85 yards, that's when it seems as though, well, the dam broke, and that's not a good strategy.
Yeah, and as Knowles said after the game, when you plan for these, you bake them in, as he says, you bake them into your system. You don't bake in touchdowns. That's the problem, because if you give up a 40-yarder and then that takes you to the Ohio State 30, you still have an opportunity to create a negative play on the next play. When you give up a big play and it's a touchdown, you're done. You have no opportunity to make up for that or create a negative play. So that's where the system kind of has a flaw, and it's that those go for touchdowns. And like I said, 5 of those touchdowns accounted for 349 yards. And there's nothing you can do to try to now get a negative play on first down and make it 2nd and 12 or something like that, because the drive is over. And so I think they were just if there's so many different ways to look at this, because the aggression was working if the players execute. And they executed all but like 2 plays in the first half. They executed all but maybe 5 or 6, 8 plays in the second half. And so Jim Knowles says that's his fault, because if the players don't make the plays in the game, then that's his fault for not getting them ready to do so. And then it's like, well, then maybe you should have dialed it back some. And with Blake Corum out, do you need to sell out as desperately to stop the run, or can you keep one defender back to help out? Like, do you need to go cover 0? Can you just leave somebody deep? Something like that. And yeah, this for the second year in a row, it feels like defensive coaching malpractice, and for completely different reasons. One, last year they didn't know what they were doing. This year they knew what they were doing, and they shouldn't have been.
It sure would have helped if Ohio State could have gotten home, but they were facing the best offensive line that they faced all year. Michigan's offensive line is really good, and J.J. McCarthy is very good at getting away from pressure. So you couple all that stuff in with what Tony is saying, way too much cover 0. I mean, I think that they were way too emboldened in some of their coverages of what they were out there doing. I think that if we would have seen something maybe a little bit more conservative and try and keep things in front of you, that's not to say that Michigan wouldn't have been able to prolong some drives and have some success, but you wouldn't have seen some of these big hits. And honestly, when I'm looking at the game, the 85-yard Donovan Edwards play, both of the big Edwards runs, I mean, Ohio State was selling out trying to get that big play, and that's just kind of what happens when you sell out there. But it's it's the Cam Martinez being kind of nowhere close to where he needed to be. It's some of those other plays that are the ones when the game was a lot more in question and contested that I'm unsure of, how much of it is, putting players in the wrong positions and how much is it players putting themselves in wrong positions. It's been a tough rewatch. I've tried. I basically am doing about a quarter a day because I just have a lot of questions, a lot of concerns. I'm looking forward to seeing the Ross Fulton breakdown over on Buckeye Huddle. Once he gets that over to me and we can get that posted of what he sees as somebody with more of that X's and O's eyes than me, who generally just has my eye drawn to where the ball is. But a lot, I don't know.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot that goes into this. I think Ohio State had the ball, and I'm going back to offense for just a second to then come back to defense. They went right down the field and scored 12 plays, 81 yards. In the next possession, after Michigan kicked a field goal, Ohio State gets it down, has a first down at the 15-yard line. On the first play, they ran a screen to Xavier Johnson for 1 yard. Now it's 2nd and 9. They run Mayan Williams for no gain. So now it's 3rd down, and Stroud throws an incomplete pass in the right flat, and they have to kick a short field goal. So it's 10-3. By all rights, when it's first down at the 15-yard line, even against a great defense, Ohio State should score a touchdown there. I mean, really needs to score a touchdown there. So it should be 14-3. Michigan, they force a punt. They kind of punt it back and forth, whatever. They force a punt, and Ohio State then drives, has first down at the 42-yard line. And on the first play, they run a screen. I have it written down as a Buca, but I think the play-by-play had it written down as Cade Stover for -3. Then on the next play, Mayan Williams runs it on the next 2 plays, and they lose the ball on downs because the 4th down pass kind of sails high over Cade Stover's hands. And he was pretty well covered on that play, and I think Stroud tried to put it out and lead him away from the defender a little bit. It was just a high pass. But you got to get at least 3 there, if not 7. So instead of the score being 21-3 or 17-3, the score is still 10-3. So now here's Michigan. The team's traded punts. Michigan starts on its own 30. It's 3rd and 9 at the 31-yard line. The score is 10-3. There's about 7 minutes and 40 seconds to go in the second quarter, and Jim Knowles decides, let's try and win the game right here. Instead of keeping the play in front of them, giving up a 5-yard pass, tackling the guy before the line to gain, and forcing a punt, I had binoculars on this. They brought 7 guys up the middle, on blitzing, rushing, however you put it, to try and get to the quarterback. And Lathan Ransom is this much short of getting to McCarthy's backpedaling off his back foot and whips it out there to Cornelius Johnson, who makes the catch in front of Cam Brown. Cam Brown takes a bad angle and doesn't make the tackle. Jack Sawyer runs as hard as he can to recover on the play, and he can't get there, and this guy's gone. And so now I sat there with Pat next to me, and I'm hitting him like they didn't take advantage of these opportunities, Pat. This is going to come back to bite them. And I said, in some frame, God damn it, that was it right there. That was it right there. They just let them off the hook. They've played 20 minutes of football. They've dominated for 20 minutes of football, moved the ball up and down the field, and the game is now tied 10-10 with 7:26 to go in the first half. And you've allowed the monster to live and breathe. They hadn't done anything. They had done nothing on offense. They'd driven for 1 field goal, 10 plays, 44 yards, and hadn't run the ball really effectively at all. And now you've let them live. And so that was a terrible situation. And then when you've now let them into the game, you've opened the door to where if there are mistakes made on the field by players, as my dogs begin to bark, that you've now opened the door to get yourself beat. And that's what happened. Cam Martinez obviously got turned upside down on the double move by Johnson. A few series later, the next series for Michigan gives up. He's not even in the camera shot when he catches the ball at about the 40-yard line going in, and he's gone. And then in the second half, there's a coverage break again where they let the tight end, the freshman Colston Loveland, I think is his name, get loose going down the right sideline. Lathan Ransom nowhere to be found. This was equal opportunity. It was a horribly called game by Jim Knowles, just pathetically horribly called game, and none of these decisions hold any water. Even at the end, selling out for whatever the hell that was. It's an 8-point game. Why are you giving up a 75-yard touchdown run? Get a 3-and-out and get us the ball back with 6 minutes to go so they can go in and tie the game, numbnut. I don't get it. I do not get it. I don't understand it. And as I said, when you make mistakes on the coaching aspect of it, you now open the door to the human element aspect of it, of the players on the field. And we saw equal opportunity. Hickman, pass interference penalty. Ransom beaten by the tight end and a pass interference penalty. McAllister, I didn't notice him the entire game. I don't know. Maybe he didn't make any mistakes. But Brown certainly beaten on the touchdown out in the left flat. And Burke gave up a big pass on the early field goal drive. And, of course, Cam Martinez. Jesus criminy. Equal opportunity. They all sucked. Worst game by an Ohio State secondary back to the Vinnie Clark days, the dark era, the late 1980s and 1990, as bad as it could possibly get.
When you bring up Vinnie Clark, that's damning right there.
I was going to bring up Pepe Pearson because I still remember him getting knocked out of bounds around the 2 or 3 yard line in the first half of 1996. And they stalled at like the 3 or 4 yard line, kicked another field goal. It was 9-0 and completely dominated the first half. And we know Ty Streets, Sean Springs, and there we go.
Yeah, you keep it a one-play game, you're going to get beat by that one play. And that score should have been 17-3. Let's just call it even. I'm not going to assume they get a touchdown on the one where it was first down at the 42 because – one more first down, you maybe end up with another Noah Ruggles field goal. But to me, if you're up 17-3 in the middle of the second quarter, I mean, you could still lose the game. There's no doubt about that. But you don't open the door for one play to kill you. And one play killed them over and over and over and over in this game.
I felt better at halftime because even though there were those two plays, there was Marvin Harrison to the house on the great throw and catch to say, okay, we got that back, the lead at halftime. Yeah, it's a more dominant first half than what the score indicates, but at least that got Ohio State back in front. We're going to see more of that. I thought there was a deep throw down the seam to Ibuka in the fourth quarter on the drive that made it 31-23. And, in retrospect, where were a few more throws downfield to give guys that are supposed to be winning 50-50 balls a shot to show their athleticism?
Yeah, I don't know that the shots were there and the safeties were covering stuff up, and that may have also been why they were able to run the ball so well. To touch on David Greenshield's super chat, Hayden getting 2 carries after 2 100-yard games. I don't think the selection of running backs was the issue. Chip Trayanum did just fine. They just stopped running the ball. Like I said, nine rushes in the second half, and one of those is probably a sack. I don't know, but just the abandoning of the run. You continue to run, then you have to start bringing a safety up, and then you can take some of those shots that you're talking about, Mark. Some of those, but I also think there were opportunities to go deep. The safeties can only defend one side of the field or the other, the way that the defense is lined up. And if you've got Marvin and Nemec on one side, that's where the safety help is going to be. So Julian Fleming had a decent game. I think he could have taken more shots, as you said, but it's always so difficult to find like rhythm with Ryan Day's play calling. It comes and goes. Like it's odd at times where there's no running or there's just running. And I think maybe that's it. Even throughout his years, it's tough to find that rhythm, that identity that other programs have.
I'll just say this about the Trayanum and Hayden debate. I think Trayanum, for having not played, did really well. I think had this been Indiana, Rutgers, Maryland, no problem. But you weren't beating Michigan with him at running back. And here's why. They opened a hole one time going from the south end to the north end, and he runs into his own blocker and gets knocked down. And, I mean, that could happen to anybody. But Dallin Hayden's 20 yards beyond that point. At that point, he would have hit those holes, and that would have been a 65-yard touchdown with Dallin Hayden. I don't have any doubt about that, because that hole, it should have been a 40 or 50-yard game with Chip Trayanum. And they also ran a toss to him on like a 3rd and 3 or something like that, and he couldn't get to the corner. I mean, it was painful. He was Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday trying to get out there. So he was a great change-up back. I don't know why they were scared to death to put Dallin Hayden in the game. That kid had earned his stripes. He was no longer a freshman, as Urban used to say. Not a freshman anymore. He played 10 games, even though he really hadn't played 10 games. He only played 3 or 4. But, it's all hands on deck in the Michigan game, and you had one of your better hands underneath, not on deck. So I don't understand why you didn't put your best players out there, your healthiest, best players out there to try and win this game. I'll never understand that. So this guy, after back-to-back 100-yard games, deserved a shot. And just another question that wasn't asked, that one of many that guess we'll see. And running back position for me, guys, going forward, Travion Henderson comes out on Twitter and says he had a broken foot and torn ligaments in his foot, was still trying to practice and play, trying to answer, how soft he was by not playing in the game. Well, that's definitely true, and that's unfortunate for him. And, it's unfortunate people took things so far as to, say mean things about him on Twitter or whatever. But very understandable where he's coming from. Mayan Williams, I presume, did the best he could, and just had a couple nice runs, but just nothing to write home much about, and they eventually shut him down. So you tried to win the big game without a couple of your big players. So, it looked and felt the way that it looked.
Ferris, Ohio State scores fast and often. You needed a shootout to win. Don't know if anyone has a response to that. Obviously, that's the narrative. That's assumed by most, but I don't necessarily know if that's completely true.
Ohio State didn't cooperate with that shootout part.
No, they didn't take part in the shootout. Didn't get to 40. Rose Quartz Lemonade, thank you so much for the super chat. We appreciate that. I had to mourn. I did not watch any. What did we look at?
Buckeye Huddle.
Okay, Buckeye Huddle. Shoot, I should know that. Or Voice of College Football content after the game, as I usually do. This one hurt my boys. Can't even respond to the clowning.
Oh, talking about the flag and all that. Hey, man, Victor go the spoils. Ohio State's never really rubbed it in Michigan's face up there, other than that PA guy, like within a minute of the game ending, will you please clear the field for the Michigan band program? That guy with the deep voice. And everybody at Ohio State's like, screw you. We're having a party right here on this field, bro. But you never see anything as overt as trying to plant the flag on the block in. Maybe that'll become the new tradition next year if Ohio State goes up there and wins. And I'm not of a mind to concede anything to them just because they won this game by 22 points. I think Ohio State's going to have a talented team next year, regardless if it's Devin Brown or Kyle McCord at quarterback. I mean, when you have a team theoretically with the talent that includes Marvin Harrison Jr., Emeka Egbuka, potentially Travion Henderson, potentially Mayan Williams, presuming they're healthy or returning. Let's see. Possibly Cade Stover, I presume, back at tight end. And then on the other side, JT Tuimoloau and Jack Sawyer. And I don't know what Tommy Eichenberg's going to do, but, I'm going to assume that whoever plays in the secondary next year is going to be better than what they had this year. Either transfer portal or guys coming up in the system. And I'm not ready to concede anything that Michigan's going to have a better team a year from now than Ohio State. They're going to have the quarterback. And boy, he played a tremendous game against Ohio State at Ohio Stadium, but there's no reason to just concede, oh, they'll not win up there next year. Let's see how the teams are assembled, and let's see how the first 8 or 10 games of the season go before we just, concede victory to those guys next year up there. So, but Ohio State's never really rubbed it in their face like this. And so maybe they've taken this thing to a new level, I guess. I don't know. But, to the victor go the spoils, as they say, and hail to the victors as well.
My suggestion in that spirit, next year is the 50-year anniversary of the M Club banner being torn down by the Ohio State Buckeyes. Rather than plant a flag post-game, why not just tear down that banner pre-game and really get stuff going? And then Michigan will be reprimanded for having that, just like they did with the tunnel. Just you didn't have any security there, and so it's your fault.
Yeah, I think the new tunnel protocols won't allow that. My guess is Michigan comes out first, and then Ohio State, and the banner's already down by the time Ohio State comes out.
Well, then you watch wrestling. They need to have people already on the inside in like the little security jackets or whatever, rip them off, and it's the big reveal. And good old JR, Jim Ross goes crazy. By God.
That's Ohio State's music.
I do get annoyed a little bit when I see past players or fans saying like this never would have happened under Urban Meyer's watch. And like, have you already forgotten the Oklahoma and Baker Mayfield planting a flag? There's so much revisionist history about the Urban Meyer era, and this never would have happened. This mental letdown, this blah blah blah. This 2015, the entire season was a mental letdown. 2016, they go and get annihilated in the playoffs. 2017. They lose at Iowa by 1,000. 2018, they lose by 500 at Purdue. Urban Meyer lost 3 of 4 between the 2013 and the 2014 season. And this is all, that all happened. Now, what Urban Meyer did is he went 7-0 against Michigan at, so credit to him. But like all of this gnashing of teeth about the letdowns, and this never would have happened under Urban Meyer. It's very similar to when everybody ascribes like this deity level to Nick Saban. Like, this never would happen for Nick Saban. And it's like, no, this always happens to Nick Saban. This would never happen at Alabama. No, this happens at Alabama. The imaginary things that have never happened under Urban Meyer's watch that happened under Urban Meyer's watch. It's one of my pet peeves, I guess.
Yeah, the Ohio State fan base has swung in just a few days from being entitled to win this game to conceding next year already. It's amazing.
Stages of grief.
Like, I guess, because my thought is, have you not watched sports? Have you not watched sports before to see, we don't know where we're going to be a year from now in terms of these two teams. We have no idea. And that was before the transfer portal.
Yeah, and again, you never know if Michigan's actually going to choose to play the game.
Do the Colts still need a head coach? Or yeah, they need a head coach. People are saying Irsay is going to throw millions at Captain Comeback to get him to come back to Indianapolis and save the day. So that would be interesting.
Why would the Colts go get somebody who has coaching experience? That's dumb.
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe Jeff Saturday could be coaching on Saturdays. Then he could come to college football. Ross Quartz Lemonade, thank you so much again for the super chat. Appreciate that. As a 27-year-old Ohioan, we spoiled. I'm hoping the Golden Buckeye Tree dynasty of my childhood is not over. Hope we get in and get a Georgia-style revenge.
Mark, how much have you talked about on your show about how Georgia lost by 17 last year and ended up winning the national championship?
Yeah.
The narrative that, well, you can't get blown out. And again, this was not a blowout. This is in that sense. Earlier this season, the College Football Playoff Committee talking on their teleconference saying that Tennessee got beat by Georgia in a one-sided affair, but nobody ruled out Tennessee as a possibility for the playoffs until they lost that second game. Didn't matter that they were lost in a one-sided affair. I guarantee you, when we talk to the committee tonight, they will not consider this a one-sided affair. They will consider it a four-quarter game that got away from Ohio State at the end.
Yeah, they have to treat them the same way they treated Tennessee in the same situation, I think. These games this weekend are toss-ups. I mean, both of them are 2.5-point favorites, USC over Utah. Utah's already beaten USC once, although it was, again, a 2-point conversion at the very end. They won 43-42 at home. And the other one, TCU's a 2.5-point favorite, at least the first time I looked, over Kansas State, who I think they beat 38-28 the first time around. And it was at TCU, I think. So
without their quarterbacks, Kansas State.
Yeah, both teams are red hot. Really. Utah lost a game here, to Oregon at Autzen Stadium, I think, a week or two ago. But otherwise, all four of these teams have been red hot here down the stretch. So, these games are not foregone conclusion. I have a hard time believing Utah is going to beat USC on the fast track in Vegas. USC's making too many plays to me. The other one could go either way. TCU has been a high wire act all season, and is this the week where they finally fall off the high wire and somebody beats them? I don't know, but nothing surprised me. And if one of those results happens, I think it's Ohio State's spot. If TCU was named Texas and they were 12-0 and lost that game, then they'd still be in. But they're not named Texas; they're named TCU. So that's the long and the short of that. That's all I have to say about that.
Well, yeah, TCU will deliver half the DFW ADI and about 12 other people. And, there's something to be said about that. That Ty is going to go to something that's going to turn the televisions on. And if you have Ohio State 5 and Alabama 6 in the rankings here on Tuesday night, they're going to both be sitting there looking to move up into a spot if anybody should falter. And
what if they both lose? Does it then go 1 Georgia, 2 Michigan, 3 Ohio State, 4 Alabama? If
TCU.
they do it the way Kevin just described, can they jump Alabama to avoid SEC versus SEC in the semifinals and Big Ten versus Big Ten rematch in the semifinals? That's an interesting conundrum.
There are people who believe that TCU is in regardless right now. So I'm sure they would be in there at 4 if they lose in that scenario. But I think one of the interesting things here is that people are saying that Ohio State shouldn't even be considered because TCU and USC are at least playing for their conference title. They are the beneficiaries of the Big 12 rule and the Pac-12 rule of no divisions. Like Ohio State is being punished because they have divisions. And so like that's the only difference right there is that the Big Ten decided not to get rid of their divisions and the other 2 conferences have no divisions. So that they are both benefiting from that, which is fine. But like to already punish Ohio State for that seems kind of odd to me.
And don't you just still compare the resumes and take them from top win and compare the losses and then take the top win? You know, you don't need to compare the Tarleton or Colorado or SMU games for TCU just because they played 1 extra game.
Yeah, they're going to look at the wins. They're going to look at the losses. Obviously, Ohio State's got the best loss of anybody at this point in terms of who is being looked at. And then you're going to look at how much of those games did Ohio State control, how much of those games did TCU control, because it's a much larger percentage of games that Ohio State controlled because TCU trailed in almost every game in the Big 12 that they played in, maybe except for 2, like this recent one and then one earlier in the season. So that lack of control is going to be an issue. But then it just comes down to, you know, what they feel like. And it may be like Steve said, you know what, Ohio State, TCU, you know what we ought to do? Alabama.
Well, remember, too, that conference championships are the data point that they care about, not conference championship game participation. So playing a 13th game and taking an L in it isn't necessarily going to move the needle all that much, in my opinion. But then again, we know that room in Grapevine, everybody goes in with their own agenda, and you kind of go from there. So it'll be interesting. So I know I'm excited to just watch, even though I think we know how the top 6 are going to shake out in terms of what the CFP rankings are going to look like here. But I'm already planning what I'm going to be eating and drinking on Friday night to watch that Pac-12 championship game at 8 p.m. Eastern time.
What you cooking for us?
I'm sick. You don't want to come over here.
I would just grab a dish and come home. I mean, it's
no.
I'm bummed out that there's no Sunkist in my future on Friday night or Saturday for the game. Actually, probably Friday too. They'd probably have it down there for the media thing on Friday. We were supposed to go to a nice steakhouse in beautiful downtown Indianapolis on Friday too. We had to scramble and cancel all the reservations, Mark. It sucks.
And last year, didn't St. Elmo also provide some shrimp at the Big Ten championship game?
Yes, they did.
And they did it for I believe the Colts yesterday or Monday, whatever day today is. And then so I'm wondering if they'll do it again on Saturday. And it's like, I've never gotten to experience that. I've been to the Big Ten championship game 40 times. And the year that we, us 3 in Ohio State media aren't there, they decided to throw out a shrimp party.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And who knows if you guys will ever make it back there. That's the way it seems. Yes.
Not with Luke Fickell in the Big Ten now.
Yeah. Okay, we got Brian here. Michigan's second half defense is, quote, you get nothing, end quote, you weren't going to run the ball. Back to TCU and Ohio State. 2 points here. I'm going to produce a video comparing all these teams, but TCU's defeated 4 winning teams in the Power 5. Ohio State has defeated 4 winning teams in the Power 5, and I tend to lean Penn State, Notre Dame, Maryland, Iowa over K-State, Texas, Texas Tech, and Oklahoma State. Pretty, pretty far lean there in Ohio State's direction.
Yep, I would say so. And we were talking about this. I think Penn State is the sore thumb that kind of sticks out for Ohio State, that nobody else has a win quite like that. I mean, USC beat some teams, obviously, that were pretty well ranked out there and in the Pac-12. But Penn State's the one that kind of sticks out. It'll be interesting to see where they have Texas and Notre Dame ranked. They're kind of comparable at 8-4. Where do they have them ranked down the line a little bit? The AP had Notre Dame ahead of Texas. AP and coaches in the Super 16 all had Ohio State 5 and Alabama 6. And it wasn't particularly close in any of the polls. So what it showed me was the preponderance of the voters, overwhelming preponderance of the voters had Ohio State 5 and Alabama 6. It wasn't like, 40 of them had Ohio State 5 and 35 of them had Alabama 5. It was probably more like 70 had Ohio State 5 and 20 had Alabama 5. So to me, if the committee mimics anything that they read, from those two polls, the coaches and AP in particular, that doesn't guide their thinking. They go, off on their own any number of times, any number of different ways. But I think Ohio State's metrics still generally are good. Margin of victory, how good their offense is, how good their defense is comparatively to a lot of these other schools. I think Ohio State's still going to compare. I know Sagarin, which is weird, his rankings, I don't know how he's cooking his, but he had Georgia 1 and Ohio State 2 still after last week. He had Ohio State still ahead of Michigan somehow. So I don't know what he's doing to cook it, but, it's weird. He has, I can't explain what he does, but he had TCU with the marginally better schedule than Ohio State and below Ohio State. So if any of that makes sense, you'll have to convince me. I'm not sure.
Must be a big game control factor in there.
Yeah, scores and such.
So back to Kevin's point about Alabama here. So if Alabama's behind Ohio State tomorrow night, they're done unless both USC and TCU lose. There's potential there. But if there's only one opening, that's got to be Ohio State as long as they stay ahead. They're not playing football, either one of them. So there's no way to eclipse a team when neither one of you played.
You would think. But as we know, they tear up the paper every single week, and it's a new sheet of paper every single week. So but I agree. And even comparing Ohio State to Alabama, Ohio State should be ahead, like as you put them head to head, and the two losses matter. The wins matter in terms of who Ohio State has beaten, who Alabama has beaten. Like it all sides to Ohio State, other than but Bama is Bama factor, and Ohio State has no argument for that. They are not Bama. Bama's Bama.
I'm enjoying reading the chat right now because there are a couple Michigan fans that. No, I don't think there would be a single Ohio State fan that would want to face Michigan potentially in the playoffs, but you can't have it both ways. You can't sit there and say, Ohio State soft, Ohio State weak, we skull blanked you, blah, 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 blah. If you feel that way, you should want Ohio State to take one of the 4 slots in the playoff to thin things out. I mean, you guys have half a national championship since the 40s.
The Eisenhower administration.
I mean, or whatever. So, yeah, you may as well. I mean, put your money where your mouth is, and be Team Chaos, and see where the chips may fall at that point. I mean, Ohio State probably isn't getting past Georgia anyway, but there just seems to be you can't have it both ways. Either Ohio State's nothing, and you should just be thankful for an opportunity to maybe get to play them, or the other way around of maybe you just realize that, you certainly were the better team on Saturday and Ohio State was kind of way out of sorts and you don't want to face them, and that's okay to admit too. I would be very interested in seeing what a game where Michigan has a healthy or Blake Corum, what Ohio State looks like with maybe JSN, healthier running backs, maybe Trevion Henderson, maybe Mayan Williams, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, just my points as I'm reading the chat.
Steve, you're giving the Maize and Blue too much credit. That would be the Truman administration in 48.
Okay, Truman.
You got to go back another president.
Oh, my word.
Yeah. Jordan
Yeah,
Kapler, thank you so much for the contribution, sir. I'm sure there can be a deeper conversation here, but it seems to me we are still feeling the effects of the COVID season by not being able to see high-level play from the second-team players such as McCord or Brown.
You know, I was just looking at the stats for Ohio State's backup quarterbacks over the years. In 2019, Chris Jugganoff threw like 43 passes and 6 touchdowns. But all in all, in 2016, Joe Burrow only threw 28 passes. Ohio State's backup quarterbacks this year have thrown like 21. And last year, you know, it's about the same number. So really, I don't know that if that's the case in terms of the quarterback specific position. So I don't know that it's COVID at this point any longer. I think Ryan Day just, for some coaches, a 28-point lead is still nerve time. It's like, well, anything could happen. Better keep the starters out there for a 35-point lead. And then once you get the 35-point lead, you're like, 42 would be good. And then we can bring the other guy, bring in the new guys. And then once that finally happens, it's like, okay, now you're 6 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Just go hand the ball off. Now, I do think if Ohio State doesn't make the playoffs, CJ Stroud is done at Ohio State. And now you can spend your Rose Bowl, your bowl prep, figuring out Kyle McCord and Devin Brown and getting them, like, this is all about them now. And then you go with Kyle McCord in the Rose Bowl, which would be my assumption. And you get started on the 2023 season with the first game of 2023, and that's the Rose Bowl.
Just as it was last year, great jumping off point for Marvin Harrison Jr. and Emeka Egbuka. I mean, that got their career started essentially. So no reason why those quarterbacks, if that's what it is, and it would be Washington, it would seem, because if USC wins, they're in the playoff. If Utah wins, then that catapults Ohio State into the playoffs, so they wouldn't go to the Rose Bowl. So it looks like it would be Washington, the highest ranked Pac-12 team that's not in the playoffs. So which I don't know anything about Washington at all. So
it would be like Penn State, USC. If USC loses, there's still so much to figure out there, because you'd have Ohio State and Michigan in the playoffs. So I assume Penn State would be in the Rose Bowl.
Penn State in Utah would be in the Rose Bowl.
Because Utah, right? Yeah, they would be in the playoffs. Penn
State and Utah would.
Boy, that's going to sell some tickets.
I think it's Penn State versus Tulane as of right now, and the Cotton Bowl is probably what it seems like, and go from there. But
don't go to that.
Clemson against somebody good in the maybe Clemson, Alabama, but I don't think it can be Alabama. Doesn't Alabama have to go to the Sugar Bowl if they don't go to the highest rated SEC team has to go to the
2C.
Yeah, they have the deal with SEC.
They have to go to
they're locked into the
Sugar Bowl.
They must have to go. They have to. The contractually obligated to go to a bowl that they only have to drive to. No flying allowed, and it cannot be more than 47 minutes from door to door.
Hey, what do you think about Purdue giving Michigan some fits with Aiden O'Connell throwing it all over the lot, and Michigan maybe having a little bit of a letdown after they slayed the big beast? Purdue wasn't exactly the 27 Yankees down the stretch here, but they did win their last 3 games. I don't know. Could they?
Aiden O'Connell's going to be playing with a heavy heart. His brother just passed away.
No.
Yeah.
That's awful. I saw the line was 17. I'm like, that's way too much. That just seems like, to me, like Michigan. Of course, God, Michigan could go in there and blow them out too. Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
Really good.
Yeah.
I don't know. What
Anytime.
do you think,
Well, I think anytime you get the emotional aspect in there, like we were all there on the sidelines in 2018 at Purdue for that with Tyler Trent and that whole thing. And it just creates a different kind of atmosphere. But I think Purdue, if they can protect and then make some guys miss, I think they can score on Michigan. But Michigan's plan against Ohio State just worked so well, and Ohio State was so helpful. It's like, well, what happens if nobody helps Michigan? what if Purdue chooses not to help Michigan? How does it go? I think it could be pretty exciting. I think we've seen Ohio State come off of that Michigan game and have some close calls in the Big Ten championship game against lesser teams, Northwestern, and Wisconsin. And so, anything can happen. And the thing is, Michigan can lose. They're still in. So, like, the stakes are really – like, they're not even going to lose the venue. Like, they'd go from 2 to 3. And so, like, there's nothing bad can happen for them in this game.
Any chance for Purdue, Kevin?
No.
Okay.
I can't. I mean, I just don't see it. I just don't see it. I don't. Yeah. Okay, there's nothing. I mean, there's nothing for Michigan to lose. Yeah, there is a Big Ten championship. I mean, a trophy, the ring, etc. The banner over there at Lucas Oil that gets put up for like a week a year or whatever. I mean, I've never been there for a Colts game to see if they leave them up there, but there's plenty on the line there. I mean, I think that there's a level of does it if they go in there and they lay an egg against Purdue, I mean, does it delegitimize what they've done this year? I mean, I think that they're going to come out focused, and I think that I think by halftime of that game, everybody's going to be looking to see what's on other channels because I'm not expecting much of a game.
27-10 at halftime, maybe something like that.
If Michigan hadn't done what they did last year after the big Ohio State and then trounced Iowa, I'd question it a little bit more, the big letdown. But Purdue's more of a wild card.
Yeah, Jim Harbaugh will give the Herb Brooks speech, like if you blow this one, you'll take it to your graves or whatever, and that whole thing. And so go get another Big Ten championship. It's been since 2004 since you've had more than one, and now you'll have another trophy on a very, very empty trophy shelf.
Purdue's more of a wild card for me. Minnesota, Iowa, Wisconsin, Illinois showed up. Like, I know what they're going to bring week to week, for as lousy mixed with the good as it is. Run the ball, defense, they're all pretty much in that same. Iowa would be a higher caliber of defense than the others, but the rest of them are really strong defenses, but run the ball and we can't throw it. Versus Purdue, man, Aiden O'Connell, he's going to sling it around. They're just a different Western Division team, and they've looked on occasion better than those other teams, but on occasion they've looked horribly worse than all those other teams. Really bad.
That's the problem. You never know what you're going to get. Like midway through the season, they started looking like the best Big Ten West team, and then they go and lose. Like, you can't rely on them, but you also can't underestimate them either, which is the problem with most of those Big Ten West teams.
D2, K2. Good point here. Why is Alabama getting considered over Tennessee? Whoever wants to take that one on.
Because they're Alabama.
Okay.
If they were named Mississippi, it wouldn't be like this.
Bama's Bama.
Bama's Bama. Just look at the name of the school. That's all you need to know.
Don't lose to South Carolina.
Yeah, that's the problem. Is Tennessee lost to now South Carolina has turned out beat Clemson the following week, but what a great 2 weeks it is to be at South Carolina. They're going to give Beamer a lifetime extension after that.
Yeah, if you go outside the head-to-head matchup, Bama's not had the South Carolina blowout loss, and they played LSU better. They got a better out-of-conference win. You can go all those directions, but they're both 10-2 playing in the same conference, and Tennessee won the game. So, good point. I believe in head-to-head, that's for sure, except for you've got a bunch of merry-go-rounds when you start head-to-head because you got all these, Kentucky beat Mississippi State, but Mississippi State beat Arkansas beat, you can go do that forever in most of these conferences, especially the ACC and the Pac-12. DC Triple X, thank you so much for the contribution out of Penn State going to the New Year's Six. Congratulations. This is James Franklin's legacy at this point. A lot of 10-2s go to a New Year's Six. and lose the
Cashing
big
them
games
checks,
this weekend.
babe. Cashing them checks.
Yeah.
Once they move to the 12-team playoff, though, like
They're in.
yeah.
They're in.
Yeah. What? 10 seed versus the 7, 11-6 game.
You might get some Happy Valley, like a home game in Happy Valley. I think a home playoff game in December in Pennsylvania. That's pretty cool.
Be like a snow globe.
White out in the snow. Yes.
Brainius, thank you for being here. Thank you for the contribution. Amateurs pulling pros arm wrestling. Why isn't anyone asking Day the tough questions like, you guys take notes here, next news conference, there we go. Why no Dallin Hayden? Okay. Why don't our corners get their heads turned? Why do the safeties let the tight ends run by them? Is this coaching or just talent?
Both.
Well, I mean, there's only so many questions to ask in a 10-minute scrum, and then we haven't talked to Ryan Day since. Why don't the corners get their heads turned? I mean, they were chasing. So were there really any 50-50 balls that needed to be to get your head turned around? I think they've done that at times just fine this year, but it's been a rough year for the corners. For instance, Ohio State's defensive ends have 3 interceptions this year. Ohio State's corners have none. Ohio State's linebackers have 2 interceptions this year. Corners have none. I don't know when the last time the corners did not have an interception in the season. I went back to 2009. There's interceptions every season. I didn't feel like going any further than that. Why do safeties let the tight ends run by them? Because they're looking into the backfield.
Yeah.
D2, K2, Tennessee beat LSU, Bama lost to LSU. I may have misspoke there. Yes, I watched that game. Yeah, Tennessee beat LSU by 27 points. Yes, I was in on that one. I may have misspoke there for whatever reason. So I'll keep misspeaking if people send super chats. I guess that's the lesson learned. All right.
Congratulations to Jim Harbaugh, the Big Ten Coach of the Year.
Big Ten Coach
It's
of the Year.
official.
It's official.
All right, I talked over you, Tony. Who is it?
I was congratulating Jim Harbaugh on winning the Big Ten Coach of the Year.
All right. Yeah. I think it was going to be.
It wasn't Kirk Ferentz.
Had they won on Friday, it would have been.
It was going to be Brett Bielema until Michigan just kept winning and winning and winning, and Illinois lost a couple in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Poor Brom.
Brown in the chat. Michigan Monday did run. I know. I saw it. So keep looking at Buckeye Huddle.
It was there. The site got crashed for a little bit, but it is there.
Let's go around the horn. You guys have some great stuff out there. Kevin, set us up for what everybody can find from you.
Well, I'm still kind of trying to organize my plan for this week, as I have been a little under the weather for the last 2 weeks. I'm sure that I will have some sort of post-mortem Big Me kickoff coming here probably midweek. Obviously, we will be on tonight to watch the CFP rankings with you. And I'm going to probably try to do a by the numbers piece where I go through some numbers that may surprise you from this season. Probably by the end of the week over at BuckeyeHuddle.com. And, of course, you can find me on Twitter at Kevin_Noon.
Tony.
Yeah, I just dropped an episode of Buckeye Weekly today, re-ranking or ranking the Big Ten coaches as they stand now with the additions of Luke Fickell and Matt Rule. I think there's some interesting names in there. Big Ten coaches are getting better and better. And so we did that. So that's available wherever your podcasts are sold, and just covering the Big Ten awards right now, stuff that's being handed out today and later today and tomorrow with the offensive awards tomorrow, Big Ten defensive stuff today.
Yeah, I got to say the Western Division has had an upgrade here. It's pretty strong, 1 through 7. Steve.
Not much going on. Just tracking the playoff rankings tonight and their bowl selection on Sunday. We'll be all over that. And traveling down to North Carolina tomorrow to cover Ohio State versus Duke in the ACC Big Ten Challenge, 7:15 tomorrow night on ESPN. So going to be doing that. And just trying to catch up on some sleep now that I'm not having to write about a Big Ten championship game this week. So there you go.
Good crowd today, folks. Appreciate you being here. And we are typically here Wednesday at 11 a.m. Eastern time. Maybe we should do it on Tuesday. I don't know. But anyway, we're typically here on Wednesday, folks. So you know what? Make it on back and bring some folks with you. And follow these guys, of course, to track Ohio State football and basketball every day. All right, guys. Appreciate you doing it, as always. And we'll see everybody back here next week.
See ya.
All right. Take care.